Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this new episode of the Grit Makers podcast. This is the meeting point for resilience, performance, and mental health. We hold a space for creators, entrepreneurs to inspire and be inspired. My name is Muna, I'm your host. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our amazing panel who are joining me today. Liz, please, can you introduce yourself and give us your own definition of resilience?
Hi, I'm Liz Miele. I'm a stand-up comedian. I would say my definition of resilience is just the ability to pick yourself back up in all instances, especially when you don't really have resources or a plan or even support. So I think, especially in stand-up and in a city, I live in New York, so in a city like New York, I think you're always getting knocked down, and so the ability to just get back up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And in the audience, guys, thank you so much for joining us live. Please drop in the comments where you're dialing from and if you have your own definition of resilience. And if you have any questions, this is the moment to line them up so you can ask them later on. Um, but Iris, please, can you introduce yourself as well with your own definition?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Iris. I'm a singer-songwriter and musician. I live in London and I do music. I just released a new EP, so go listen to it. Um, and my definition of resilience, um, it's pretty similar to Liz's, but I wrote it down actually because I tried preparing so I wouldn't stress out by like, improvising. But I think for me, resilience is liking life enough to want to keep doing it. And I feel like it's actually in every single human's life that I feel like everyone goes through resilience because I feel like keeping on being alive, keeping on being alive and wanting to live your life to the fullest every day is an act of resilience, I think.
Right. Absolutely. And this is something we find at every episode. I think now it's like getting closer to 40 different guests, and everyone there's 40 different definitions.
Definitions, that's
Given.
amazing.
There are stuff that like are pretty much in common or kind of like across the board, but also some interesting differences.
Mm.
Ben, tell us about you and your definition of things.
I didn't realize, Muna, that you ask everybody the resilience question. I would have looked back to make sure that my answer is completely original. But I'm going to go for it. Thank you, first of all, Muna, for having us here, for being so organized. You're amazingly organized and setting everything out very clear. So thanks for having us, Muna. My name is Ben Nathan-Serio, and I'm currently in New York. I'm transitioning. I feel like the world is in a moment of transition right now, but definitely, or maybe constantly, but I'm transitioning from the West Coast back to the East Coast. So I'm also, like Liz, I'm also in New York. And for me, resilience is, just simply forging ahead when there's great adversity. And as Iris said so astutely, every day is adversity. There's something in it, but that's kind of what makes it worthwhile. So in a weird way, resilience is every day, but it also stands out more when the going gets tough, right? That's when the tough get going. So that's what resilience kind of is for me.
There is like this is exactly why I love to have these conversations, because the adversity part and how we can like stand tall facing it is quite frequently what comes back. And we hear a lot about resilience in the media and in general, but there's like quite this little bit in it that is like how we do that, how we stand. And there is like a big component that is change. It's like how we change and adapt and grow in that process, how we expand ourselves, this capacity to do so. Because if you stay the same, you kind of like find yourself sinking in there. Um, And that's why I love to get so many different opinions and life stories, because we can get those magical nuggets, and get to share them with the world and try to find like ways to adjust better than when we're faced with the new shit that's waiting for us. There is one thing though that I don't want to make assumptions. So I'm just going to ask you clearly, do you face the pressure to perform, especially in your industries? Is
When you say perform, what do you mean by perform?
genuinely, do you feel the weight of expectation when you step on stage?
I mean, for me personally, I don't want to disappoint people. I mean, people spend to come and see a comedy show is a luxury, right? People spend their hard-earned money, and especially in America right now, nobody is doing well. I think mentally or financially. So I'm very acutely aware that people are spending both free time, which we have less and less of here, and their hard-earned money, which we have less and less here, on something that is technically frivolous, and they just want to have a good time and they just want to laugh and relax. And so I would like to pride myself that I put on a good show and I want to do a good job. So I wouldn't know if I feel a pressure, but I do feel, it's going to sound cheesy, but I almost feel like an honor. You know what I mean? Like whether it's my fans that specifically came out to see me, or in New York, we have these showcase shows where it's a mix of a bunch of different comedians doing 15 minutes. I still, I want to show up for them, but I wouldn't know. I wouldn't call it pressure as much as like, I love what I do. And it's a gift that I get to do this.
How do you guys feel about it in your respective?
I definitely feel pressure, but I think it's it's a good thing, because it means that the stakes are higher. If there's no stakes, if there's no risk, if there's no pressure, then it's, you channel the energy. You have this expectation, and that gives you a boost. It makes you laser in. I believe often in good performance, the performer enters a sort of a trance state, and in that trance state, the spectators become locked in. You can't take your eyes off of someone in a sort of a trance state, but you get there because of expectation, because of pressure. So I don't think pressure is a bad thing, necessarily, always. Yes, I feel pressure when I get on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me there's different layers to it, because well, I feel like it depends on the situation. I feel like most of the time when I'm on stage, it's like the one time when I'm doing what I'm best at. So it's the one time where I actually don't have the pressure. Like, I don't have the pressure to prove anything, because I already know I'm gonna do like what I've worked my whole life to do and to be perfect at. Not perfect, but you know what I mean. As good as I can at. But but then, like, it also depends who's in the room. I know that, for example, if my parents are in the room, because they're singers and musicians, I know they're gonna then like give me a feedback of everything that could have been better. So like, then if they're in the room, I know I feel pressured. But if I know this is gonna be a moment when I get to control the room, I know this is like actually a moment when I put pressure on myself to be as good as I want to be and as I know I can be. But then I don't feel pressure coming from other people, because I'm just like, okay, this is a new opportunity for me to share what I want to share so badly with new people in the room. So yeah, I think it depends on the situation.
Yeah, there's a certain expectation, but your relationship to this expectation is turning it into your advantage, or your room to play, or actually your room to serve others, and have that beautiful space. And it at any point, have you faced someone else externally, like outside of your parents perhaps, that has voiced a judgment or anything that impacted you in your career?
Everybody? I mean, is everybody allowed to be an answer? I mean, I mean, I think I have good days and bad days of accepting that response, pressure, negativity, etc. Um, but I mean, it's hard not to be influenced by how people take in both who you are as a person, but also your work. I mean, and it's only expanded now that the internet is, hugely a part of everybody's life. I mean, I'm constantly I mean, almost all of my success is through posting on social media, and I'm grateful for it, but it's the best thing that's happened to me and the worst thing that's happened to me on any given day. But even before that, auditions and just trying to get better and trying to get a footing in my career and talking to people at parties. I don't know what they call it. We call it FaceTime, just trying to get a booker to notice you and stuff in the beginning. I mean, I don't think a day goes by that somebody doesn't have some influence or it's hard to turn it off. I think the only thing that has gotten stronger is my ability to define who gets to live inside my head and who has value and who doesn't. So I was talking to a girlfriend of mine. She just had a Netflix special. It's like kind of like the biggest thing you could have in comedy at this point. And somebody on the internet was saying that she was unoriginal. And I was like, what? And she was upset about it. And I was like, Dave Attell loves you. This other, you know what I mean? Some of the biggest comics in our industry think you're incredible. And some faceless dude doesn't think you're original. Why are we giving him more of validity in his opinion than the best in our industry? And I think that's what I'm constantly doing for myself is, somebody says anything negative or judgmental of you and your first reaction is to be defensive or to be hurt. And then I have to be like, oh, this dude's never lived a day of my life and doesn't know anything. And my peers and my friends value what I do. And you just have to turn it off.
I'd even ask you, what does it mean being original? Because I'm like, I don't know what that means.
I mean, to me, it's to be uniquely myself, good or bad, which, I'm working on a new joke about how I'm the worst in a doctor's office, like truly a monster. And I'm not like my parents are doctors and I was told to advocate for myself, but I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So I'm just saying no to professionals and questioning their authority. And I know nothing. I am a nightmare. And so it's this, I'm embarrassed. I'm telling a joke about something I'm truly embarrassed about. And I think that's where the connection is that for good or bad, I am authentically myself. And I think to be original is not to try to emulate anybody or try to put on some kind of true, we talk about performance, but I am performing truly a 98 to 99% version of myself with tweaks. I'm a little funnier when I practice, but I am still trying to authentically be myself. So I think originality is that when you come to see me, you won't ever get you can't go anywhere else to get a show that's like mine.
And do you guys, like Ben, Iris, like, do you find that easy to be authentic in what you do?
That's it's a big question, actually. First of all, I feel very inspired by everything you said. I actually took some notes because inspiring. And your joke is really good. I can't wait to hear it where you want to take it because we all laughed. So.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that was a great question, Muna. What is truly original? Because also at the same time, everything has been done, to a certain extent, in a very base, structural level. Everything has already been done. The stories have already been told. But Liz is right. That's what makes it. It's her take on it. It's my take on it. She tells a story. I tell the same story. I'm not going to tell it the same way. Her take on a doctor's visit is going to be totally different. from mine, or next week hers is going to be different from today's. So that's what I think. I think that I don't think I can improve upon that answer. Originality is just the filter of you.
Mm.
And in the comment, we have people dialing in from Florida, Nairobi, Eastern NC US. Hi, Leslie. Thanks, guys, for dialing in again. Lovely to see the same names. And Leslie sharing with us, performers must be heart-centered. One cannot be afraid and heart-centered at the same time.
Mm.
What does that inspire to you when we introduce the fear factor in here?
Heart-centered, I think, is another way of saying, like, it needs to be genuine. People, mostly people can spot bullshit a mile off, you know, and if you're not channeling, if you don't really believe, you know, that's why I've done a little, I didn't really introduce myself professionally earlier, so maybe I should go back and do that. But I have experience doing stand-up, a very short lived visitation of the craft, and yeah, the stuff that really works is when the stakes are highest for you, when it's heart-centered, when it's like, hey, what I'm about to tell you is really important to me, and here, and then you find the words to make it also important to your crowd, right, to your audience. But it's the fact that it's so important to me, and I'm being precious with it, and I have my heart invested in it. It's going to bring your crowd in. So I think that's what it means to be heart-centered.
And I think, you know, whether it's, you know, music or stand-up or writing or whatever, I mean, there's this idea of relatability. And I think sometimes they put too much pressure on relatability when in fact, I know people that enjoy my stuff cannot relate to it in anything other than pure excitement or absolute anger. Like I'm telling the angriest story about something no one has ever gone through but me. You know what I mean? But they know what that anger feels like. They know what that excitement feels like. They know what that disappointment feels like. They know what that heartbreak feels like. So I think in some ways where I feel like I've excelled with my stand-up and my storytelling is that one, I take you on a journey, but two, even if you don't relate to my exact feelings of this journey or this experience, you know, I've let you know why I'm that angry, and you've been that angry before. I've let you know why I'm this confused or disappointed because you've been confused and disappointed before. So I think just being open and honest about pure feelings is where you can be more heartfelt, right? I'm not hiding anything, even if what I'm doing isn't completely relatable to you.
Mm. I think the fear factor is very interesting because I'm sure like we're all scared of different things for different reasons when it comes to our craft. And I know that interestingly enough, my biggest fear is always to not be enough. And like I keep working on it and it keeps on coming back to it. Whatever I do, whatever fear I have is related to the fear of not being enough. Although I know like I'm confident in like quite a lot of things about my craft, about the work I've done, and about like just me. Then obviously there's many things as well that like I'm insecure about. But I think it's interesting because, for example, all my songs are about very vulnerable, emotional topics, and so I'm never scared to talk about really deep parts of myself, so that people can understand their deep parts better. But for example, I'm much more scared of whatever the whole package I present to the world is not enough for people to actually like it, because all I have to share is my emotions. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's interesting. It's very interesting, and like so it's a blend because everything I do is heart centered, and I can't do otherwise than come from a genuine place, because that I don't know how to do art differently, but still it's constantly accompanied by the fear that maybe that's just not enough. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, I have the exact same wound. It comes up in the weirdest places, like all the time. And it is, I think the most confusing part of my kind of healing journey is that I am like a confident bitch, but at the same time, I'm like, oh no, nobody be mean to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no. Like, so it's like, I go into like meetings for work and I'm like, that's not enough. Like, you're not paying attention to my needs. You're not paying, like, I would never put that number out for what you're asking me to do. But at the same time, if I don't get the job, I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? So I think like that, not being enough, it's hard. It's like, I think it's one of the things that I feel is the reason I am authentic and I am who I am. But the amount of times that it's like this, I trip over it. And I truly feel like a 9-year-old that's just like, why does nobody want to, what? Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly as well. I think when we ask about like, part of the pressure and then part of like being ourselves, how do you find like that balance of actually being creative and stress management, basically?
Mm.
It sounds like, I don't know if you guys know Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Power. It's. I think he talks. Is it Eckhart Tolle who talks about the pain body?
Mhm.
It's basically your ego. It wants to be fed. It's that downward spiral of self-deprecation, and you're not enough, and you're not going to be enough, and you're not talented. It's like just there's some kind of vacuum or this emptiness in you that wants to be fed and told that you're not enough. And it's I don't know. We're programmed that way for a reason. Maybe it's to make ourselves better or to push ourselves. But when there's an imbalance and that voice takes over, then you're going to be on stage and drop out of the trance state. You're going to start to see yourself and you're going to watch yourself, go up Schitt's Creek. You're going to, you lose your center, you lose that focus and and everybody can see it. So it's poison.
What's your self antidote to navigate? Basically, you're swimming in poison all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
From getting too sick.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, at least for me, but I assume this for most artists, I mean, the creativity is the antidote. Like, the creativity is the thing that makes me feel safe, whole. For me, a bad day that becomes a joke is no longer a bad day. A bad situation, something that I have no control of in the real world, but I'm able to spin it into not only connection with an audience, but also make money off it and feel empowered by it and almost feel grateful that it happened is, I think, for me, what we were talking about when we first started talking. But like, Iris said she feels best on stage because that's where she knows she's an expert and knows what she's doing. But like, I feel when I'm able to make somebody laugh because of something that was like my worst day, you know what I mean? Or the worst I've ever felt about myself, I'm like, it erases everything.
Mm-hmm.
So even if my career isn't where I want it to be, or even the audience didn't react exactly the way I wanted to, I still feel like I created something out of nothing that is just making life worth living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have to PR our own brains. Like, we have to spin our own realities. Yeah, you like Liz talking about. She has a shitty day and she makes it into a joke, and that flips her day upside down. Like, we are responsible for our realities. We remind ourselves that. That's one thing that, when things are going really bad and things are looking really bleak, I'm like, dude, this is your choice. So change your mind. Yeah, well, it's not that easy. Like, it doesn't happen like that. But it's like, what are the steps I need to fucking take? Do I need to go for a run? Do I need to call a friend? Do I need, here's the tools that I have. And it's not going to turn around in the next hour. And it might be the next day or it might be the next week. But here's the things that I've been doing to fuck myself up. And here's the things that I can do to turn it around. Because there's just not enough time. I mean, we don't have, I just turned, 40 only 3 years ago. And now
Sorry.
That's actually from my stand-up, Liz. That's from
I love it. You're like, I just turned 40 a while ago. I'm a baby. I'm just a little baby.
when you hit that number, you're like, okay, no, there's no time for this shit. No, come on, let's create our own reality here. So those are the things you do. And then when it's really bad, like you've had a horrible day, you didn't get the job, you lost your phone, you had a breakup, whatever it is, I zoom way the fuck out, and I'm like, none of this shit matters. Nothing really, like, we're tiny little viruses on a beautiful planet, a million miles away from everything else. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
I love that losing your phone in a breakup is on the same realm.
You're
not wrong. You're not wrong, but I just feel like somebody from the 80s is like, wait, what?
I'd say losing your answering machine. You erased all the messages on your answering machine.
Oh my God. Oh my God. How are you going to find that number again?
At first, I thought all of it was happening in the same day. I was like,
that is a monstrous. You should quit after a day like that. Break up, lost your phone, didn't get the audition. You can take that day off. That's a stay in bed day. Somebody told you that you're not doing it today.
That's a Tuesday, man.
Ben has gone through like 3 different phones in a month.
Yeah.
It's like very interesting, this thing of like switching state and, zooming out. And it's all fun and games when we're doing well and we're having a great time and we can talk about this. Have you guys have faced any kind of like breakdown or burnout at some point in your career that led you to figure out these ingredients? Raise of hand if you ever burnt out or had a breakdown.
All the time, every day. I mean, I feel like, and I think more and more our industries are changing. Every industry truly is changing more rapid, and you have to pivot and catch up and reevaluate and change your tactics and whatever. But, when I was probably 10 years into my career and technically full-time performing, but truly gig to gig, like sometimes taking $50-$100 gigs just to make rent and feeling equally exhausted and feeling like this isn't sustainable. And I mean, I think one of the biggest turning points for me was realizing that I was waiting around to be chosen and repeatedly not being chosen in my career. And truly, like, I was living with one of my best friends and her career was taking off. So this was like 12, 13 years ago. So she had just done Letterman. She was on Last Comic Standing. She was every kind of it thing you can do to make your career launch. It was happening for her, and deservingly so. And I was able to be happy for her, but it was also like such a mirror of everything I wanted and not being chosen and not having that. And I felt so bad because she was such a good friend that I could be there for her. But then 3 days later, I'm at the kitchen table crying because I want the same things and I don't know how to get there. And she's a great friend. She was like, you're going to get there. I don't know when, but you will. But it was deciding that I didn't want to be the bummer for her launch, for her, all the things that I was like, well, what can I do for myself? What power do I have that if my whole goal is just to get my stand-up out there and to continue to perform and to get better as a comic, what can I do today without being chosen? And this is early days of social media. I actually got really that's half of why it became my career, is I started reading Gary Vaynerchuk and taking PR classes and getting really dorky into this thing that is now, at least for comedy, 100% how people do it. But this was 12, 13 years ago. I mean, I just got a little anniversary thing for YouTube that was like, happy 15th anniversary. And I was like, oh yeah, I was 25 and I was sad. And I started a YouTube page because I was like, oh, I'll just put it out on my own. And I think that the lowest of low of feeling like nobody wants what I'm putting out there, and then deciding that I'm not going to let that decide I'm not going to let the business decide I can't do my favorite thing. And that changed the complete course of my career, but it also completely changed my mindset, because that can be applied to hanging out with people, friendships, business partners, relationships, what have you. You know, we're constantly trying to be chosen. And sometimes I was definitely a chaser. I was a chaser most of my life. If someone was nice to me, I was like, oh my God, I was like a puppy dog, and getting hurt constantly. And so I think that really made me start to realize that there's people that are making an equal effort that I am, and I'm going to focus on that. And I want to do comedy, and I'm going to focus on that, and really just utilizing what I have around me. But it was messy, very messy.
I really relate to what you're saying, Liz, about waiting to be chosen, that's a huge part of being an actor. Waiting by the phone is just so not in my DNA. And I'm like, all right, what can I do to initiate it? Because right, that's part of the script, is like, go to the thing, get looked at, and they decide if they're going to pick you, and if not, goodbye. And they don't even say goodbye. You don't even get a call. It's just done. And you go to the next thing and pick me. I totally relate to that. And it's yeah, that's what you're talking about, that and having boundaries about where you're going to spend your time and how you're going to invest your talent. That really resounds for me.
How did you do that, Ben? How did you rewrite your own narrative of not being in the waiting side of things, but being in the action?
I mean, so many ways over the years. I kind of built my career mostly in Spain, is where I really started out. And the first thing I did was I did an improv troupe in Barcelona. Then I moved to Madrid and I started another improv troupe there. Both of those troupes are still around in Spain. I'm mostly not in Spain, but I'm there once in a while. And then I got into immersive interactive theater and started making initiatives there, doing my own shows, doing my own street events or theater events. And then you create, I kind of, what resounds for me, that I work with mantras, like sayings, and like, if you build it, they will come. So I had this improv troupe, and I was one of the only expats doing something like that in Madrid. So whenever they needed an expat for a movie or for a commercial or for a voiceover, they'd go, oh, Ben's the guy. And they'd call me, and I'd be like, oh, I can do that. Or I have actors who can do that. And the work came. And honestly, before I knew it, I was making a living off of acting in actually most of the time in Spain. I was making a living off of acting. Which brings me to the part where I think James put us in touch, because of your subject of resilience. Because I said to myself, this is great, but the market is tiny. It's Spain. I want to raise the bar. And so about 6 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles, and it turned out my chips, I couldn't cash them in Los Angeles. I was basically starting over. And actually that gave me a little bit of a left turn, and I got into another career, which has been great. It's cool. It's not my passion. It doesn't scratch my creative itch, but I still did some performance in my time in Los Angeles, but definitely my creative career has been put on the back burner, and that's part of my transition back to New York, is to try to reignite it. So, yeah, I forgot what your question was, but I hope I answered it.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Is how do you go against the grain when you see that you're being a fish on earth trying to walk, or how do you put yourself back in a tank where you can swim and be your best self? And sometimes it's the environment, sometimes it's the methodology. It's like, I think it's how you've learned the skills to empower yourself to do what you love. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go and take these courses and get my head around social media, or I'm gonna go and like build something new. And this way I don't have to beg for someone to hire me. They'll come to me. And this is also something like that, Iris, you're experimenting. You've done 2 shows of The Voice, and having to go through that judgment and officially being picked or not on like national TV.
Yeah.
And then you're filling like full rooms at your show.
Yeah. So yeah, I was on The Voice twice. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I did this to myself. I did it 3 years ago in Belgium, and then I did it last year in France. I'm French. I'm not from Belgium. That was a random thing. When I did it in Belgium, I was eliminated after the third round, and then last year in France, I made it to the final. And then we did a summer tour. So the voice took a year and a half of my life last year, from the auditioning point process to like the end of the tour. And actually it's very interesting because I think when I met you, Muna, I met you through actually a coach, another life coach. He was giving workshops, and I had like 3 workshops with him, and I think one of the biggest things he kept on telling us was to be the center of opportunities. And it was actually, I met him a year after I did The Voice in Belgium, and actually after, so September 2022, 2020, yeah, September 2022, I was feeling awful about life, terrible. September, October 2022, worst months of my life. And I was really going through a low, and I started doing these coaching lessons, and they really started sparking something new in me. And I think it's because I had just come from something where I had not had control over anything, and so I started like being the center of opportunities was for me like the biggest, I think, new idea for me to be like, okay, like why should I wait for someone to ask me to sing? Like I'm gonna tell them that they want to see me sing, you know. And so I created a live music event in London, and I created 2 headline shows, and then last year, fast forward last year, I did The Voice in France, and it's very interesting because you would think I would have learned from the first experience, and then I, which I did, but like somehow it was still not enough because I still found myself at the end of the day doing the show, and once again finding myself tricked by being presented not in the way that I wanted to be presented. And I think it's inevitable with these kinds of shows, unless I already had a whole team that could negotiate for me, and I had already a massive, like, super clear brand identity, 2 albums behind me, and being like, listen, if you want me on your show, this is how it's gonna go. It was not like that. It was like, if you can get me on your show, that'll be great. So, you know. And so it was very interesting experience, very intense, very sparkly, but very depressive as well. Whole, yeah, massive thing. And then this year I released my very first EP, so it's a small album of 5 songs, and I created my third headline show, which was my biggest headline show. And this time I had an opening act, and I had a whole band, and it was a much bigger room, and I managed to like sell quite a lot of tickets. And like this year felt like such a much bigger achievement than last year. And it's so funny because like people that saw me on The Voice in France, like in the UK it's not that big, The Voice, but in France like it is very big, and I know it's quite big in the US as well. And so like everyone that discovered me through The Voice, like they know a certain version of me, and then like, oh my, and then after the show, anyone that I would meet, they were like, oh my god, you did The Voice, well done, it must have been amazing, how was it, how amazing was it? And I was like, cool, and I guess cool it was, yeah. But then which it was, you know, I can't like spit on the show on the sparkles, but yeah, still mental health wise it was intense. And then this year, because I pushed myself to accomplish so much for my own project, and I got to present myself to the world exactly the way I wanted to present myself to the world, it felt like so much more fulfilling. And I feel like this year, since I'm talking in scholar year because I'm still a child, so like from September 2020, From September 2024 until now, it feels like one of the most rewarding years of my life because I've worked super hard, almost burned myself out yet again because I seem to like doing this. But like accomplishing this show and accomplishing releasing this EP and the friends I've made along the way and all the things I've learned along the way feel much more rewarding and validating because I know that everything I've done was as myself and not as someone forced me to be.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really going back to that authenticity and how to be, get to your center and find ways to be yourself so you can step in fully into that. And that means sometimes having to confront some of those wounds and telling the child that wants attention that no, I'm going to do it my way and this is how you're going to shine. And it's not about that attention that is not necessarily wanted or not the one that we want, but it's hard. And like you said, there's a lot of aspect of the mental health that we don't see necessarily, like behind either the fame or the love or the fans or the attention. What's something that you feel is not spoken enough in your industry?
That's a good question. There's in entertainment, most of the things are not spoken enough. I mean, most of like the adversity or the toxic aspects. I think the first thing they need to tell you is nothing. It's never going to be enough. You'll get to the level of Robert De Niro or Marlon Brando or Meryl Streep or I don't know, Adele or Elvis, and it's not going to look. Elvis didn't seem like he died very happy. You're not. It's not. We have human ambition. We are where we are, and we're. That was on the toilet.
Well, I thought this was still alive and holding weddings in Vegas. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, he's doing great. He's in space, man. He's an alien in space or in Phoenix. I don't know where they put him. But also, I mean, sorry, Ben, just to counter, I mean,
Go.
This aspect of it's never enough. It's funny. I think I feel like half of my mental health or my growth or healing has been to accept where I am while continue to strive to be better at what I do, be a better friend, be a better person, be a better partner, be a better cat mom, whatever it is, to be better, but also to accept where I am and appreciate where I am and be grateful. But what counteracts all that is, for me, what I've been calling like comedy inflation or showbiz inflation, where you get to a certain point, it's where you've always wanted to be, and it's not enough because you're getting, the pay doesn't match because now flights are more expensive and hotels are more expensive, or everybody, because of social media, has this many followers, so this many followers doesn't matter anymore, now you have to have this many. So it's also hard where I feel like, let's say 70% of the time, I feel accepting of both where I am in my career and who I am as a person. And then there's something around me that's telling me, well, to even stay where I am, I actually have to do more. You know what I mean? Because nothing is stagnant. Money isn't stagnant and opportunities change. Hollywood is dying. You know what I mean? Like, is truly not what it was even, right after the pandemic, let alone before the pandemic. So I think what's hard is both accepting that things are the way they are, you are the way you are, growing, but also keeping up on how opportunities and our careers are ever changing because it's the arts, which is weird because I also think regular jobs, because of the instability, at least in America, is now changing the same way show business has always changed.
Interesting. Wow, that's profound. Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate so much with what you're saying because I see that in the startup world or in like the corporate jobs or office jobs is people increase their salaries, the the cost of living increases. I think like coffee is now £8 in the UK, like this little granular Nescafe thing. And I was like, I saw that. I was like, I'm going to launch a business. I'm going to bring with me from Morocco.
I mean, you could just smuggle coffee into America. You could smuggle bananas into America at this point because of tariffs, and you would make a living. But what's really interesting? So my older sister, I couldn't even tell you what she does. She's explained it so many times. But she said it, she just changed jobs. And I've heard a couple of people say this, that to get you're no longer getting raises. Like you reach a max with your company, and you actually have to leave and go to another company because they value new finding people and starting. So anytime she really wants a raise, a living raise, because she has kids or because, inflation or whatever, she literally has to leave her job every couple of years and find a new job. And that just wasn't what it was for our parents' generation or even the generation afterwards. And that's pretty standard, I think, for an artist, is you're constantly looking for opportunities.
Right.
But now the workspace is functioning in some way like everyone's a freelancer. And it's not a great like, I do not recommend it, but there's no stability for anybody. And I find myself my 20 plus years of being an artist and a freelancer, coaching some of my stable office friends on this new life, because I did this. I accidentally taught myself how to negotiate, advocate for myself, use it as a good thing that things are changing and not a bad thing. But the mental resilience I needed to build to be a freelancer is now what other people had to do, and there was no teachings for them, and they weren't prepared. So I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the one beautiful thing about having to create resilience because of the paths we take is that you really are building a skill that everybody needs, but some people don't have to do it because either they didn't have loss early in their life, or they picked a job, it was a stable job, and it seemed like it was going to be something they did until they retired. And that's just not, at least in the US, what our economy is like anymore. So I really do feel like the resistance I built to survive and thrive in this career is given me a skill set that a lot of people my age don't actually have.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. That point where you can transfer your knowledge to somebody else and help them, help that you before, when you didn't have anyone to turn to. I think that's really strongly the thing that has become the most valuable today. And holding that space as well to do that and to have these type of conversations. That's what we see so much. And you're right, the world has become a world of freelancer because you do not have certainty in any job that you go to. Anything can happen, and yeah, your world is swallowed whole and you have to rebuild from scratch. It helps people build their resilience, but it also means that we're not necessarily prepared to anything because there's always something unexpected that comes. How do you find, like, guys, maybe Ben or Iris, have you had as well something that maybe felt like a weakness in the past that you've turned into your superpower, like Liz can do now with her friend, and maybe other people even in the audience that could want her to coach them through getting into freelancing, quote unquote?
A weakness that we've turned into a superpower. Yeah, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I think it's just what Liz said. It's like not having job security, going from gig to gig, and not knowing where the next paycheck is going to come from. So you have to create it, or you knock on doors, or you go through your address book, or you find a new website, or you work on your own website in your downtime. You just, and then you learn to value yourself. You didn't make ends meet that month, so you need to raise your rates. You need to value yourself higher. I mean, it's all, Maya Angelou said, anything that works against you can work for you if you understand the principle of the reverse. So that's to say, you're not paying rent, so you need to value yourself more. So you learn to value yourself more. You really know what you're worth. Yeah, that's a weakness that's turned into a superpower, I think, and painting it in a very broad way.
I find the question super hard, but I have like one answer, but it's very specific. I was thinking about how, but actually it's interesting because it's a weakness I used to think of as a weakness, and then I shifted my perspective, and then it became a strength. So I used to think that the fact that I write super emotional ballads was like a weakness because I thought it was boring, and that, that like I'm like, I'm just a girl who always makes everyone cry, which I don't know, at the time I thought it wasn't cool, but then like this year I shifted my, I don't know, really gained confidence in the art that I make, and now like I fully assume it whenever I do a gig. This is literally one of the main things I say. I'm like, I'm here to make you cry, please take your tissues. And now I know that as I fully embrace this part of myself, I'm hoping, I'm going to make people dance one day because I really enjoyed this as well. It's part of me.
2025 goals.
Yes. But it'll come with the right collaborators. For now, my purpose is different, apparently. And yeah, I guess I've changed this perception of myself, and now I really enjoy being the person that draws everybody together through the deep emotions.
Iris, can you share? You mentioned a few times. Can you share your EP? Where can we see your EP? What's it called? Where?
Yes. Okay. It's called Iris Part 1. And my artist name is Iris. And so it's available literally everywhere. If you type Iris Part 1, Iris, you should find me. Yeah, I could share a link, but I only have access to the private chat. But I guess I can.
Yeah, no, we'll find you. Iris Part 1, Spotify.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait so I don't cry. That was my only goal of the podcast. Is not.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So why don't you chill out? Because I have goals. But no, Iris, I actually genuinely relate to that because I'm incredibly emotional. I've always been a crier. I'm slightly better now, but like I'm high, like I'm very angry and I'm very emotional. I'm ranty, and I felt like when I first started doing stand up, I was incredibly monotone. Like I was like, oh, I don't know if you know who Mitch Hedberg was. He died. He was like a one-liner. He kind of was like medium famous before he died, but he was extremely unique and funny, but he was monotone. And I started out monotone because I was scared that people would see me, like genuinely see me, because I didn't like who I was, and I was extremely angry and emotional, and I remember very early in my career people being like, your jokes are funny, but you're very different off stage than you are on stage. Like you should be the same person. And it took me much longer than I realized that I was scared for people to see that person. And I have a bit more control over my emotions. Like Ben was saying earlier, I have my skills and tools so that I'm not just like a crazy person all the time, and I can process them healthy and better and quicker. But I do take initial Liz, like when something happens and I'm like crazy angry, I'm able to kind of take that version of myself, process it, give that unfiltered version while being calmer in my real life. So I can be the person I want to be in the real life. And then I take who I would say like initial Liz, first 10 minutes Liz, and put her on stage and be that crazy bitch. And people relate to it. Because it really, even though I'm not doing it in the real world anymore as much, we'll say as much, I still feel connected to her. I am level 10 angry, even though I'm able to get it down fast, unlike when I was in my 20s and I would just be crazy for days and weeks, and it was uncomfortable. But I think I was embarrassed of that person, and now I've honed it, I've created it, and I put it out there, and it really has become both what makes me unique, but also what makes me, like you said, it's just that shift. Like I've changed a little bit, but really I'm just the same emotional person I was, and now people like it. Not if they saw it in the real world, but they like it on stage.
That is like so powerful, because that allows us to wrap things up with like one thing that I want to ask you is, how did you get to love that version of yourself, accept that authentic version of yourself?
I'll just say for me, I feel very fortunate. I have friends from elementary school, I have friends from high school, I have friends from college, I have friends from comedy. I have friends that span over 30 years, and a lot of friends that I've had for 15, 20 years. And I think I had a moment where I was like, I didn't like myself, and I was embarrassed by how emotional or crazy or whatever I was. And don't get me wrong, some people were like, "Go to therapy." Like, some people were like, "You're good. There's some improvement you can make." But for the most part, even at my worst, or what I perceive to be my worst, I've always had really good friends and good people in my life. So I think what helped me is realizing that as I am now, no changes, people love me and care about me. And I can only improve. I can only get better. Right? So accepting my flaws and that people still love me as I am, but also knowing if I'm going to make this much of an effort to be a better comedian and a better writer and a better performer, I can also make the effort to be a better friend, a healthier person, a better sibling, a better daughter, etc. And so I think that was where a lot of my growth came from, was accepting me now and then also trying to be better.
I'm gonna, yeah, thank you, Liz, for sharing that. I'm gonna turn that question on its head a little, Muna, because I feel like I came into this world, I came into this adulthood with a bit of hubris, with a little bit too much confidence. I mean, side note here, I don't know for the people out there who are just listening, I'm a white guy, so that has helped.
The whole time?
Yeah, no, yeah. So the whole time I've been a white guy. I just honestly, I feel like the doubt, the insipid like self-reflection has happened really in the past less than a decade. But I hit the boards, as it were, the stage, with a lot of confidence, and I got a lot of positive feedback. And it took me deep into my adulthood to recognize and learn to value really hard work. So what I'm saying is, you asked the question, how did you learn to accept yourself as you are? I feel like I haven't really battled with that in my growth into my profession. I feel like it's something that's come later as I've taken on all of the traumas and defects of adulthood. To be honest.
I mean, it's always a skewed question with me, because I do believe that it's a lifelong project, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of like throw you in the deep end, but
Yeah.
but a little tips that something that moved the needle for you is always good to share with the audience. And for you, Iris?
I think for me it's quite similar to Liz, actually. It's the people I've been surrounded by. And first of all, I think I've been very lucky in being surrounded since I was a kid by parents and family that believe in me as much as I believe in myself. So I feel very lucky in that, because that's already an element of myself that I never needed to doubt, more than I already do, more than the average level, healthy amount of doubt. And as for like coming really at peace or closer to peace with the whole package of who I am as a person and an artist, and how I couple these two things, this year the big shift was thanks to a few people that I've met that to whom I was giving value, and that like gave me enough value that I thought, oh, maybe like my music is actually worth being listened to. And I think, yeah, it's meeting these few people this year that like, but I think it's not even their validation, is that they created the space for me to make mistakes and to get better and to like find the worth there was in my work and in who I am. And so now I feel much more confident, I think, because I was given that space to like fully embody who I want it to be. That's a bit broad. Sorry to the listeners. Good luck.
It sounds like what you're saying is community. I think community was one of the themes there.
Yes.
The
Yeah,
people.
for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it's a beautiful way to close this space. And I'm very, very grateful for you to have showed up today, for everyone in the audience who showed up, sent questions in advance or even live. It's really that we tend to think that resilience is that very individualistic thing, that a lot of it happens in society and with others and with meaningful, healthy relationships and navigating that. So on this beauty, please do leave us comments of what it means to you, what you appreciated most. Go follow our wonderful artists, and I'll make sure to add the links to their profiles and their work in the description of the videos. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day or a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having us.